This is big, and politicians on both sides of the Potomac know it. Will it be Maryland or Virginia that lands the new headquarters of the FBI? In just a few months, the federal government is going to choose a winner. But first, both sides get one last chance to make their case. There are 3 sites under consideration, 2 in Maryland, Greenbelt and Largo, both in Prince George's County, and 1 across the river in Springfield, Virginia. Virginia Senator Mark Warner has been pushing hard for the Springfield site. Obviously, he's with us tonight to talk about that. Senator, I want to cut right to the chase and talk about the last-ditch effort by Maryland leaders to insert language into December's omnibus spending bill that has really recast this whole battle. So that move, fair or foul?
Well, listen, this process has been going on for almost a dozen years. I mean, we all know the FBI building in D.C. is literally falling in on itself. Under the Obama administration, we'd made progress. It was a fair fight between Maryland and Virginia. We got all upset when President Trump then put that whole process on hold for 4 years. So I was a little surprised that when the process restarted under President Biden, and they were looking at what the GSA thought was best and the FBI thought was best, that when they came out with criteria, our friends in Maryland said, no, change the criteria. That seems to be the exact criticism we made of the Trump administration.
I want to talk about some of those criteria in just a second, but first I want to frame this entire issue for our viewers. Is landing a new FBI headquarters a bigger deal than, say, HQ2 with Amazon? Is it a bigger deal than landing a new football stadium?
I think HQ2 was the biggest economic development deal for the DMV in the last 20 years. The FBI process has been one, again, it's almost been a decade. It's been a decade plus that it's been being discussed. We're ready for the GSA and the FBI to make their final choice. We think we stand up well with the criteria that were laid out by both of those entities. I think it's a little strange because clearly Maryland and Virginia compete over lots of different federal buildings. I think it's a little strange that our Maryland friends tried to come in and literally micromanage some of the language. Luckily, that didn't take place. But if both sides wants to make their best case one last time, let's do it.
Right. So that's one of the things that was discussed in the language that was inserted into the omnibus bill, specifically talking about weighing this racial equity component of who is going to land this site. Why do you think the Springfield site would stand a good chance weighed up against 2 different sites in Prince George's County?
Well, remember, there are 5 criteria. One is what's in the best interest of the FBI. And we have most of the intelligence community in Virginia, obviously Quantico, the FBI training headquarters in Virginia, the FBI storage materials in Winchester in Virginia. Transportation's a criteria. We've got a Springfield metro stop there. We're at the junction of 95 and 395. We've got questions around cost, and this is a federal facility already. And then I think it's very appropriate that President Biden said that one of the criteria ought to be equity and fairness. And we are anxious to go toe-to-toe with Maryland on that.
A decades-long battle that is slowly inching toward a conclusion. Virginia Senator Mark Warner with us tonight. Senator, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
All right, and this came in just right before 5 o'clock. Senator Warner is going to join Governor Youngkin along with other Virginia leaders for a press conference Wednesday morning to talk about their efforts to try and secure the FBI headquarters. For the other side of this issue, we'll chat with a member of Congress who represents the other side of the river. Glenn Ivey represents Maryland's District 4 in the House. Both proposed sites in Prince George's County sit within his district. Congressman, greetings. So how does Maryland overcome this one huge hurdle in this whole thing, that the Springfield site is just a stone's throw away from the FBI training facility in Quantico, Virginia?
Well, I think that's the tail wagging the dog. That's like saying you're going to move the Pentagon to New York because it's closer to West Point. Look, the facilities that the FBI does the heavy lifting out of, the field offices for the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's offices and Main Justice, all of them are closer to the sites in Maryland, Greenbelt in particular. So, for example, the FBI field offices, they've got one in D.C. and in Baltimore, but there's nothing as close in Virginia. Same thing with the U.S. Attorney's offices, Main Justice, the U.S. Attorney's office at Greenbelt is walking distance from our site, and then the Baltimore office is close as well. So I think the location on those grounds clearly favors the Maryland sites.
Let's get into one of the
but
other.
I do want to say this too. I think cost is a big point. For some reason, the GSA criteria weighted 30% proximity to Quantico as opposed to cost, which is only 10%. Our sites are, the site in Virginia, you would have to be cleared. There's a building on it already, and there are estimates that it would cost $100 million plus to do that. Plus, the state of Maryland's put up money. So there's some estimates that range, we could save federal taxpayers between $300 and $500 million if you put it in the Maryland site.
Yeah, the Largo site, though, the Largo site would have to be purchased from a private entity, so that would increase the cost. One of the criteria I want to address with you is this racial equity component that, on first glance might favor Prince George's County. Senator Warner made the argument that, look, hey, Springfield is a majority minority community, so where's the break?
Yeah, I think they're like 50-point-something% minority, and that's fine. Prince George's County is like 2/3 African American, and I think our Latino population is somewhere in the 12 to 15% range. So I think it's a 20-point gap. I don't really think it's a close call on that front. And the other point I think there too is just from a historic standpoint, I think the president tried to make the point that trying to help predominantly African American communities was a goal of the administration under the diversity and equity criteria. I think we clearly went out on that front.
All right, so we know that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, GSA, the agency that will pick the site, will be hearing arguments from both sides. So Virginia sent this big, beefy 12-page letter to GSA dated last Monday to make their case. Where's Maryland's big, beefy letter?
We're ready to make the presentation to the GSA. We've been doing this I've only been in Congress for a few months, but our delegation, including Steny Hoyer, Chris Van Hollen, and Ben Cardin, have been doing this for more than a decade.
Right.
So I think the numbers are in our favor. I don't think we need 12 pages to win this out. I think in just a couple of paragraphs, it's clear we've got the better sites.
As long as there's no bad feelings among the National Capital Region delegation at the end of this. Listen, Congressman Glenn Ivey, appreciate your time, sir. Thank you so much.